The Cubs need a star for 2024 and beyond, and we think we have one. Find out next.
You are Locked On Cubs, your daily Chicago Cubs podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Cubs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Alongside Sam Olber, I'm Matt Cozy. Please support the show and be a part of our community by following on your preferred audio platform. And you can watch, subscribe, and leave a comment on YouTube. Thanks so much for making us your first listen. Sam and I are lifelong fans, taking our passion into a discussion with you on all things Cubs. Thank you whenever and wherever you may be listening to this Friday episode. Maybe you're out for a Friday road trip, going to the beach, doing some work around the house, in your normal routine, going to work, maybe doing a workout, load of laundry, whatever that is. But we are going to get back to game coverage on Monday. We'll recap all Cubs Cardinals on Monday. And today, Sam, we're going to do a little bit of dreaming instead.
Yeah, I think the Cubs, I think every fan, whether you agree or disagree or have different thoughts on where the team is at right now, I think everybody feels like there's a piece missing on the offensive side of the ball. And I think going into 2023, our hopes were that that missing piece would be filled internally. Would Happ take the next step? Would Suzuki become one of the top corner outfielders? You know what I mean? So those guys, albeit are nice complementary pieces, I think we all feel like they need to make a big addition. And, you know, we've talked about this off the air and we're having a little bit of fun. So the floor is yours.
Yeah, and I think it's time to talk about having a big addition. I haven't heard this necessarily as much as perhaps there should be. And I think it's an appropriate storyline for this team moving forward. And the Cubs need that. They paid a lot of money for this roster, and there are good players, but no clear star who is firmly in the upper part of the order, who showcases a consistent level of production, and it even has the ability to take over a game, which in baseball is few and far between, but I think
no long slumps.
Right. And the Cubs are continuing to decide on what to do at this deadline, but perhaps they can simultaneously buy for 2024 and acquire impact talent. And Matthew Trueblood, who's written about baseball for a while, he now of Northside Baseball, a very new site that's doing quality work. He proposed a trade earlier this week with the Padres trading Juan Soto to the Cubs, and there are actually more reasons that you might realize for this. We're going to go over those. But first, Sam, what is your general view of Soto and the possible specific fit on the north side?
Yeah, so I read it. My general view would be it's not happening this trade deadline, but it's something that I think should be explored in the offseason. I do think it's a realistic thing in the offseason. The reason I say it's not happening this trade deadline is the Padres aren't going to have that much invested, and they're not going to give up on 2023. But they may in the offseason of 24. And the reason is you know, there's many people around the league and some people around the league that I've spoken to, and I don't have many sources, but I have a couple. And it's a well-known fact that Juan Soto doesn't love San Diego, right? He just doesn't love it. He got traded there. It's not where he wants to be. And if that's being heard in the I shouldn't say fact. That's not the right word. It's a well-known story. And if that's being talked about around baseball, then the Padres know that. And going into 2024, he has one more year left on his deal. Mm-hmm. And if you save it to the deadline, you want to maximize your return because the odds are you're not going to get much back for him. And, as the Padres are currently constructed, they're not even really at a contending rate right now. My view on Soto is he's the exact type of guy the Cubs need. this year has been a down year for him. He is hitting the ball on the ground a lot, and it's limiting his power, and he still has an OPS comfortably over 900. Nobody on the Cubs is even sniffing that besides for Bellinger. And that's a floor. His floor is a much better player than anybody the Cubs have, and his ceiling is the best hitter in baseball. And, the reason why you make a move like this, and again, we're aware that this is fantasy land. We're dreaming of it. But the reason why you make a move like this, and I'm talking for a while, and I'll hand it to you.
It's fine.
There's two things to talk about. The first and most important thing, have you ever seen those like arrow things where you're going through scenarios and it's like, if this is yes, then move to the next thing? The first thing has to be, does Jed Hoyer feel pressure for his job security in 2024? Because if the answer to that is no, this deal is not going to happen. He's not going to give up future assets for possibly a 1-year rental. He's not going to do that. But if Tom says, hey, I don't like where this thing's headed, we need to be better and we need to be better quick, he'll make that move, or he'll try to make a move like this. And the second thing is this. Let's go back to 2022, 2021, 20, and 19, all World Series winners. The Houston Astros, they feature a superstar when he's healthy. Yordan Alvarez. You can make the case that Altuve's won as well. Juan Soto's in the upper echelon of that category. The Atlanta Braves, yes, Jorge Soler got red hot in the playoffs. So did Eddie Rosario. Freddie Freeman is a superstar. He was the fulcrum of that lineup, right? 2020, the Dodgers, Corey Seager, superstar. Mookie, they had tons of guys, right? 2019 Nationals had Juan Soto as their fulcrum, right? You need a guy that is the center of your lineup. You need a guy that takes Dansby Swanson and Happ and Horner and elevates them because he's in the lineup. And I think it's a realistic thing to talk about because San Diego's in trouble. And if they don't win a World Series soon, they're going to be looking around, and A.J. Preller's not going to be around, and there's going to be a lot of debt. There's going to be a lot of things that are happening, and I think that it's a realistic thing. So I guess the 2 points I'm trying to make by talking for a bunch is, number one, this only is realistic if Jed Hoyer feels like he has to put a contending team out there next year, which I think he should. And then number two, is San Diego willing to say, hey, we're going to punt on 2024? Maybe not punt, but we're willing to trade away a guy like that because he's not re-signing. So.
Yeah, and we're going to give you a possible package, which would indicate they wouldn't punt, which would is an interesting, at least to listen to the phone call.
Right.
I think this is realistic because Jed Hoyer should feel the pressure, and the Cubs should have the resources to do it. And guess what? They should have the prospect capital to be willing to do it.
Right.
Juan Soto, we know about him with flying colors. And you just eloquently put all these examples of postseason teams and the ability of these players to transform basically an entire roster, but definitely the batting order and position player wise.
Right.
And yeah, there's probably only a handful or two of these players around baseball, but I want the Cubs to have one of them. And they have the ability to trade for one. And it's worth being creative, but it should be worth to Jed Hoyer getting on the phone to AJ Preller and doing this. And it's become comical to hear now, 2 Friday episodes in a row. Gabby from Locked On Red Sox and Sam Olber from Locked On Cubs, and talk about down years for Devers and Soto, respectively. Now, I get it for those players and their lens, sure. Yeah. But guess what? We're now starved for that.
Starved.
I didn't even realize Gabby said that last week. When I always listen back as I upload the show to our audio and video feeds, and that's it. That's the only time I listen back.
Yeah.
And I heard that. I laughed out loud.
Right.
Because then I looked up Devers' numbers. He's crushing it, according to his baseball card.
Sure.
And here's Soto this year, fam. He's slashing 264, 419, 488.
Yeah, it's a down year for him.
It's hilarious. if that's a down year for him, and if this is a dream, then please don't wake me up, because I want this player. I want everybody to slide down the lineup, and this is the guy the Cubs need. And by the way, he has more walks than strikeouts, 90 walks, which is 4 more than his 86 Ks, 17 homers, 23 doubles. He's likely going to make 25 to 30 M's in his final year of arbitration in 24.
Right.
And the Padres might be seeking relief in their budget due to uncertainty with their TV deal.
Right.
And Bally Sports is no longer broadcasting the Padres because they could no longer make payments at the deal they agreed to. And Major League Baseball took over the broadcast rights, and the payment structure, as far as we know now, is just simply lower in terms of payouts to the teams. And as you said earlier, the Padres haven't been good with Soto, and he might not like it there anyways.
And they got a huge commitment to Bogarts and Machado.
Highly paid roster.
Yeah, and those guys really, that doesn't look like it's going to age very well.
They're 9.5 games out of first in the NL West, albeit what's been historically a good division the last 5 years.
Yeah, but they're supposed to be a 95 to 100 win team.
That was supposed to be a fun summer out there, and it's been dismal.
Yeah.
I'd like to get into what it would take, because Matthew Trueblood of Northside Baseball, and we'll put the link to the article in the episode description. He makes it clear you have to start with Ian Happ or Seiya Suzuki, because
100%.
then the Padres will pick up the phone.
Right.
They would get a major league outfielder under favorable cost control who is an everyday player right away. And that's a big deal, because it's not just a prospects package.
Right.
So it'd be Happ or Suzuki plus a top position prospect plus a top pitching prospect. Where do I sign? They called Manfred, approve it.
And the other thing is that is interesting about this, that's a big part of the deal, is you'd have to do some inquiries on, what does Juan Soto think about Chicago? Because if you could get him to come here and want to re-sign, then it's a slam dunk.
Wow. Yeah.
Right. It becomes tough if he's only here for a year. That's the difficult part of it. My guess, it would be Suzuki would be the one to go, because like you said off the air, San Diego liked him. And I think I don't know if Suzuki has a full no trade. We know Happ does. And I don't see Happ waiving his no trade to go to San Diego. But I see Suzuki just being on the first plane out there. I mean, I think he'd love to go there.
Yeah, I think so too. He does have a no trade.
Yeah, I think he would waive it in a second to go to San Diego. And then, I think if, from a Cubs perspective, I'd like to, I wouldn't give up PCA. I wouldn't give up Horton for him. I know you'd probably give up I know you'd give up Alcantara for him. I'm only giving up Alcantara if I feel like I could re-sign him. I would do something along the lines of Suzuki, Canario, and Wicks, something like that.
Right.
Something like that. Where now San Diego might hang up the phone, and then you got a problem.
Right.
And by the way, this doesn't have to be just subject to Juan Soto. He's a subject of the video. The point is, I think we all feel like for the Cubs, because right now the Cubs are below competing, right? They're average. They're an average to mediocre team. They're below competing. Mm-hmm. To get to skip over competing and get to contending, they need a huge guy. They need a splash.
Right.
So maybe it's not. Maybe they call the Mets about Pete Alonso, who's actually having a down year. Maybe it's somebody else. But the one thing that they have done a good job of is they have built, like you said, prospect capital, and they could give a couple of these guys away and still feel good about their farm system. So
totally. And I would do a little bit of a higher price with Suzuki, with Alcantara and Wicks. Yeah. But even if it is a Canario, maybe you add a fourth player just because of his injury history. There's ways to do it.
Well, you could toss in Mancini for a cream soda.
Oh, no.
So he'll be, as we record this in the afternoon, he'll be in the lineup against Mats.
I hope he's not.
Yeah.
So I would like to show you a projected lineup. Boy, am I just giddy about this.
Yeah. And we're having fun.
So if the Cubs made the trade today, it had to line up against Jack Flaherty on Friday.
Yeah.
I'm also considering Swanson and Madrigal's health, which
Yeah.
we could all consider that, and also maybe win the lottery this weekend.
Yeah.
But here would be the lineup. I mean, come on, player. It's so good right away. Talkman in center. Hoarder at second. Soto in right. Bellinger at first. Swanson at short. Happ in left. Morel DH. Gomes behind the dish. Madrigal at third.
No, it's a good that's a really good baseball team. And the other thing is you
That's a realistic lineup.
make it a point about Bellinger is if Jed is thinking about something like this, then he shouldn't make any huge trades to get worse in the offseason. Because if you trade Bellinger and Stroman and then make a huge trade to go get Soto, what are you really doing?
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Unless it's just like a direct thing where he uses the capital. Like and by the way, if they do trade Bellinger and Stroman and they get a huge package, they have to make some trades in the offseason for impact players. They have too many prospects.
Absolutely.
Like it would start to get to the point where it'd be eye rolling, because you're not, the goal would be at this deadline to get like an A1 guy, like a blue chipper, like another Cade or another PCA. And then at that point, everybody else starts to become expendable.
At that point, you got to go.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I mean, Juan Soto's he's a generational talent who ever since he's been to San Diego has just been a solid hitter. He's not the guy. And that's why I think you also could get him for 75 cents on the dollar, because of what you mentioned with the TV deal, which I didn't even think about, was really intelligent. And then the fact that he just hasn't been a MVP type player when he's right, that's where he stands. Like when he's right, I think he's the best hitter in the league. I think he's the best hitter in the world when he's right.
Right. Yeah, no, he's been impressive to watch, and somehow
postseason success.
And somehow he's only 24.
No, and then you start talking about, an extension and you wrap a guy up. And I know people are going to say to themselves, well, hey, it doesn't help you with the first and third base holes, especially if Bellinger goes. And the response to that is 100%, but you don't worry about positions when you get a guy like that. You'll figure out a place to make it work. First and third base are a lot less important if he hits 40 home runs.
Right.
And if he has a 450 OBP with 40 homers and he's hoisting up an MVP trophy, I don't care who's at first.
Yeah, I mean, I'll get a Soto jersey. It's not going to be too difficult of a decision for me.
Yeah, right. And maybe people care about the team, so Ricketts can continue to gentrify the neighborhood.
Let's talk a little bit more about this year's trade deadline then, because I do have some Stroman Bellinger theories, and we'll do that on the way out.
All right.
Today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. For a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits just right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check to know the part will fit or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Motors, guaranteed fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. The Cubs play the Cardinals at 1:20 p.m. Central Friday, and you can listen to every pitch with the Cubs hometown broadcast on SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search Cubs or tune into channel 844 and catch the Cubs all season long on SiriusXM. And you will need that Friday. Actually, you know what? Yes, I mean, obviously I'm promoting SiriusXM, but Friday's game is Apple TV Plus. Yeah. Although I believe I did just see a message on our feed, Sam, that now on Apple TV Plus, there's an option to hear the radio call.
Oh.
Pat Hughes is in Cooperstown this week. 670 The Score afternoon host Matt Spiegel will be doing play-by-play of the Cubs all three games.
Oh, wow. No Zaidman?
No, him and Coomer are going to Cooperstown with Pat. So it's going to be Spiegs and Elise Menaker.
Oh, cool.
So that'll be really nice to check that out this weekend and as you're driving around on a July weekend.
July weekend, Cubs, Cardinals, two bad teams. Very rare.
Yeah. And I hope it is a good series. I really do, for the sake of really the sport. And I know they're having down years, but hopefully they do better this weekend. And hopefully the Cubs win 3 out of 4. And just to close out, Sam, I do think that a team is going to overpay for Bellinger.
100%.
And I just want to say on the way out, in terms of order, if order becomes a factor, if Bellinger gets traded, Stroman's 100% getting traded.
You think so? Yeah, it's a good point.
Right?
I think the Bellinger thing, this is such a difficult time. Like, this is my least favorite time of year to do the show because fans rightfully are going to be super angry if one or both those guys get traded.
Mm-hmm.
The Stroman one's more complicated for me because the free agent market pitching wise, unless you're getting like Nola or Scherzer, how are you really going to replace him? But at the same time, even if you keep him, it doesn't mean you're going to have him next year because he's going to opt out and you're going to be in the same situation. But the Bellinger thing just screams Jed Hoyer's going to trade him, right? His batted ball data suggests he's been one of the luckiest hitters in baseball. He's a big name that has an MVP on his resume that a contending team would love. It would be a huge move in the popularity ranking for a GM that acquires him. I just think you should be able to get 150 cents on the dollar for him. And by the way, that doesn't mean it's just prospects. Anthony Rizzo's been terrible for a while now for the Yankees. What if they say, "Hey, we'll just flop those guys and add in a marginal prospect"? Cub fans would enjoy that. You know what I mean?
Wow, that's interesting.
It doesn't have to be a bunch of 18-year-olds. Maybe it's guys that are closer, ready to go. I don't know. And the Cubs and Yankees have done a lot of deals here recently.
At this point, they have a history of making a lot of trades. Yeah.
And the Wisniewski Efros deal. I mean, Efros hasn't even pitched, and Wisniewski hasn't been good. So they might want to mulligan.
Shout out to the everydayers who are with us all 5 episodes throughout the week, and you can become an everydayer by checking us out each and every weekday. Be sure to hit that subscribe button for Locked On Cubs on YouTube, and smash the like button for the algorithm, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast, and streaming on SiriusXM. Dream of Juan Soto this weekend, and hopefully the Cubs get a series win. He's Sam Olber. I'm Matt Cozy. This is Locked On Cubs.